friends, it is Stasia and welcome back to my channel. So today we will be wrapping up the month of August. I personally had a very good reading month in August, so I'm very excited to jump in. But before we do that, as per usual, we'll go over the books that I got throughout the month first. So first we're gonna go into the first two books that I got myself. The first one is my book of the month book, and for that I got Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney is an auto-buy author for me. I have no idea what this specific book is about, but I'm excited for it nonetheless. And then the other book I got for myself, I got off of Pango, which if you're in the US, it's like a book resale app, and I sell on there, I buy on there. It's a fun time. But for that, I got Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. She's a bit of a chonker, but I've heard good things about the author and this book specifically, so I'm excited to get to this one. And then I didn't get too much book mail this month from publishers and stuff, but I did get three. So the first one is called Dark Music. I actually don't know what this is about, but it says that it's inspired by Sherlock Holmes, so it's sort of like a thriller with a murder investigation. Two unlikely allies race to uncover a shadowy international conspiracy. So it does sound really good, so hopefully I'll get to this one soon. And then I got Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This is another one where I have no idea what it's about, but I've actually been seeing this book all over the place and people have been loving it, so I am hoping that I'll get to read this one soon. And then the last book that I got this month was Tempting Tristan. I don't know too much about it, but I do know that it is a male-male romance, opposites attract, and I believe one of the men are in the military or they just got out of the military, but that's all I know about this one. So those were the few books that I got this month. Now we'll go into my stats for the month of August. So in the month of August, I ended up reading 20 books, which is my best month so far. And that came out to a total of 5,726 pages. I don't know how that happened, but it's great. And then my formats, I read 12 ebooks, and then I had 8 physical books, but 3 of those were like an audiobook mixture. And then as for my genres, I read 15 romance, 2 thrillers, 2 contemporary, and 1 fantasy. So that is the stats, and now we'll go into the books that I read, as usual in the order I read them. So the first book I read was The Godparent Trap, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. So this book follows Colby and Rip, who aren't really friends, but they have a person in common. Colby's best friend is Rip's sister, and then one day an accident happens and Rip's sister, along with her husband, passes away, so Rip and Colby have to learn how to get along because they are both listed as the godparents for their 2 children. So it just follows Colby and Rip as they figure out becoming parents, as well as figuring out that maybe their hate for each other wasn't actually hate in the first place. So yeah, I really enjoyed both Rip and Colby. They both had very big personalities. There's a lot of like swoony moments as they figure out that this is their new life together, and you know that their hate was kind of misplaced just because that they're different doesn't necessarily mean they can't get along. So it was very nice to see them start to work together, as well as the 2 kids whose names I do not remember. But the 2 kids were also super sweet. They were 2 different ages and a boy and a girl, so they both brought 2 different personalities, and it was just fun to see Rip and Colby kind of mend their relationship together, but also help these children figure out their new normal. And it was just, there were sad moments, there were happy moments. I just really enjoyed it. So then the next book I read was Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. I gave this book 4 stars. This book follows a woman named Faith, where she's kind of at this crossroad in her life where she needs to kind of choose if she wants to take her job seriously and get a promotion, or if she wants to just kind of live her life as she's living it now, which is just like a party, kind of just do work when she wants to. So in order to kind of get her head straight, she ends up taking a vacation in Kauai, where she ends up spraining her ankle and then runs into this firefighter named Asher. So it follows their story. Asher has a past. Faith is trying to figure herself out. So we kind of just see them working together. Overall, I did really enjoy this story. There was something that happened at the end where I understand why it happened, but I didn't necessarily like it. And I felt like that last section of the book could have not happened at all. And it kind of made the book a little bit more dramatic, but that's okay. Overall, I did really enjoy both Faith and Ash. While they were adults, I felt like they were both keeping a lot of their feelings away from each other, mainly because Faith lives in Chicago or something, and obviously Asher lives on the island of Kauai. So there is the connection, but they don't want to admit that because they don't want to get hurt from each other. So I felt like there could have been more communication there. And then, like I said, the ending kind of threw it off for me because I felt like we could have had a happily ever after earlier. But in the end, it was fine. I did end up enjoying it. Then I read My Scorned Best Friend by Piper Rain. And I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. So this follows our 2 main characters, Xavier and Clara, who used to be best friends since they were little. A few years ago, something happened and they aren't necessarily friends anymore. So we follow their journey in trying to become friends and realizing that maybe that their friendship has always been a little bit more, and to try to explore that like friends to lovers situation. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I loved Xavier and I loved Clara. I felt like their connection was just so real. This is a book in a series. This is the 7th book, but you don't necessarily need to read the other books to read this one. It's more companion novels, just follows a new couple. But in the previous books, you could definitely see like Xavier and Clara before their actual love story happens. But I just loved how much they cared for each other and you really wanted to root for them the entire way. So I loved them. Next, I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I have an entire vlog dedicated to this, so I won't go too much into my thoughts, but I will tell you a little bit about what this book is about. So in this book, we follow our main character, Casey, where she's living on this lake that she used to always go to when she was younger, because something has happened in her life where she kind of just needs to decompress. So she goes to this house, lives there, living her life, whatever, and then a new couple moves in across the lake named Catherine and Tom. So she kind of gets curious about them, and then one thing leads to another, and it's a whole story, and it's so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Next, I read Dark Poison by Bella Jewell, and I gave this book 3 stars. This is a dark romance with like a captor. Our main man, Jagger, kind of kidnaps our main girl, Willow, because he's trying to kind of use her as a bargaining chip. But then somewhere in between, obviously, there may have been feelings because of the way they met. They were already like instantly attracted to each other. So that was that. So I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. I just felt like the characters were a little bit immature. There was a lot of like running away, like physically running away from conversations that they didn't want to have, and so a lot of things were kind of just brushed under the rug, and then things would blow up, and there was just no communication between these 2 characters. but also the ending was wild enough that I do want to read the next book because I do want to see how things play out for them. Because at the end of the book, they were starting to grow a little bit. But for like the better half of the book, they were pretty immature, not really talking to each other, but kind of just wanted to bang and not actually talk. So I probably will be reading the second book, but this one it was okay. It was a 3-star. And then the next 3 books I have, I actually featured in a reading vlog that I can link above and below if you want to watch it. So I'll just run through my ratings and a little bit about what the book is about. Not too much on like my actual thoughts and why I gave these ratings. So the first book in that vlog was The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I gave this book 4 stars. This book follows our main character, Hal. So she's kind of struggling in life, but one day she kind of gets a letter to her house addressed to her by name, but it's from someone she doesn't know, telling her that her grandmother has passed away and she should go to the reading of the will and see if she got anything, things like that. But Hal doesn't actually know these people. As far as she's concerned, it was only her and her mom, and since her mom passed away, she didn't have anyone. So she's really confused as to why she got this invitation. But she is in a bit of a pickle, so she does make the split decision to go and see and check this family out and see like what's going on. She kind of just wants like a little bit of money and then to walk away, but things do get deeper than that and secrets come out, and it was fun. And then the next book I read for that vlog was Confess by Colleen Hoover. I gave this book 5 stars. In this book, we follow our 2 main characters, Auburn and Owen, and I really don't want to say too much about this because I do suggest going into her books knowing nothing, but we'll just say that Owen is an artist, and one day Auburn walks by his studio and gets hired for the night because he's in a bit of a situation where he needs help for the night. So she goes ahead and does that, and then they realize that maybe they do have some sort of connection, and yeah, that's explored here. And then the last book I read for that vlog was My Dark Vanessa, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. This book follows our main character, Vanessa. This is a dual timeline. So when she's in high school, I believe it is high school, she gets groomed by her teacher. And so we follow that timeline, and then there is the today timeline where there are a lot of accusations coming out against this teacher, but Vanessa doesn't believe that what these girls are saying about the teacher actually happened to her. So she's trying to come to terms with her feelings and what's actually happening. So we follow Vanessa while she's in high school and that whole situation is happening, as well as in the present day where she's kind of revisiting that and seeing how she feels now. The next book I read was Darling by Kay Ancrum. This is also in a vlog coming out soon, not sure when, but yeah, so I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This is a Peter Pan retelling where Wendy is a new girl in town and she gets lured out by Peter, and they are supposed to be going to a party, but Wendy isn't quite sure what's going on, and things start getting dangerous, so she's trying to see if she will even make it through the night. But yeah, so I gave this book 4 stars. I did enjoy it. I will say the entire like first half of the book, I was really confused as to what the point was. I felt like we didn't see enough of Peter, but once the like 50% mark hit, everything just made a lot more sense. Things started coming out that gave me answers as to what was happening and where they were, and things happened really quick. It was super fast paced, very easy to read, and yeah. The next book I read was Tempted by Renee Harless, and I gave this book 5 stars. This is a forbidden romance, age gap, father's best friend, rock star sort of vibe. This is a super short book. It follows our 2 main characters, Asher and Addison. They both need a debrief from life, so they end up going to this cabin, but they don't know that the other person is there. So Addison goes over to the neighbor's house, not expecting to see Asher there. They originally thought like, oh, this is just going to be like a fling thing, they're only here for a couple of weeks, but they soon realize that maybe their connection is deeper than they originally realized. So yeah, really enjoyed it. I loved Asher and I loved Addison. I also really enjoyed that the author didn't make the age gap like such a big thing. So usually, sometimes in age gap romances, they like constantly are fixated on the gap between the ages, but this one did not. This one just like treated it as a normal romance, and I really liked that. That was not fixated, even though it was like an age gap romance. It wasn't like the main focus. The focus was the actual romance instead of the age gap, so I really enjoyed that. The next book I read was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Gave this book 5 stars, really enjoyed it. So this follows our main character, Piper, who gets into a bit of trouble. So she has a reputation for being a little wild child, you know, like the party girl. But when something happens and she gets in trouble, her stepdad sends her to a small town to learn some responsibility. So she is sent where her late father used to own a bar. So she's sent there to kind of revamp the bar and have some sort of responsibility. But once she gets there, she meets a man named Brendan, who is a fisherman, and from the get-go, he's just like, this girl is so out of place, like we're not sure what's gonna happen. But we just follow both of them, as Piper being an LA girl and Brendan always living in this small town in Washington, living his fisherman life. So yeah, Brendan kind of starts to realize that maybe Piper is more than just this LA party girl, and Piper tries to think if this could be a life that she could get used to, or if her heart is really calling her back to LA. So yes, gave this book 5 stars. Really, really loved it. I loved Brendan and I loved Piper. I will say in the beginning, Piper did annoy me a little bit. I didn't like the way she acted, but she did quickly grow on me, especially once she got to like the small town. And I felt like they were just so fun. It is a little bit enemies to lovers. There is that tension between them that they don't want to admit to like the attraction. So it was fun watching them. Brendan is such a great male character and I super enjoyed this. I am also super excited to continue with the series with Piper's sister, which is Hook, Line, and Sinker, on my TBR for next month. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. This book actually made me cry, so it was a fun time. Then I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I gave this book 3.5 stars. So this follows our 2 main characters, Ava and Shane, who met in high school when they were both outsiders. And then they had like this week where everything was perfect. They were living their life. They were doing great. And then something happens where they're kind of torn apart, and then there's like a giant heartbreak and all of that. So we fast forward 15 years or some odd, and Ava and Shane end up running past, like they end up running past each other again. So Ava is not entirely sure what happened those 15 years ago, and Shane really wants to speak to her. So it basically follows these 2 characters as they figure out their relationship together and if they could be anything again, what happened 15 years ago, that sort of thing. So like I said, I gave this book 3.5 stars. It honestly wasn't my favorite, which I do think I am an unpopular opinion. I did enjoy Ava's relationship with her daughter. That was really fun to see, but I feel like there was a lot of parts in the book that kind of just threw me off. Like there were random chapters from like random side characters that I didn't feel like needed to be there. I felt like a bit of the pacing was off. I do wish we focused a bit more on the actual romance, which, you know, it is my opinion. Most people love this book, but yeah, so I just slightly missed the mark there. The next book I read was Make You Mine by Laura Pavlov, and I gave this book 5 stars. So this book follows our main character Ashlyn. So this is book 3 in the Honey Mountain series, and every book follows a new sister. So this third book, Make You Mine, follows Ashlyn, who is the youngest sister. She just graduated college and she's kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. So she is trying to write a book, become a romance author. But while she's in town, she kind of needs a place to stay. She does want a job besides just trying to write this book. So she ends up being a nanny for this man named Jace. Jace is a family friend. They've known him forever, and he has 2 little girls. So she ends up being their nanny and living in their guest house. Obviously, one thing leads to another. This is a age gap nanny employer romance, and yeah, it was just a fun time. So I gave this book 5 stars. It had all the drama, it had all the love, and I honestly loved seeing Ashlyn figure out who she is as a person now that she's, you know, she's always been the youngest. So she's like, yeah, I am attracted to this man, but what do I do with those feelings, because I'm working for him. So there is all of that, but he's also been like a family friend, like everyone knows him. My dad works with him, that sort of situation. But I really enjoyed watching her with the girls, and I also loved watching Jace as a dad to the girls, and then watching them slowly realize like, hey, this isn't so bad. But there is also lots of drama in this book because Jace does come with a lot. Along with the girls, he also has an ex-wife, so he has a lot on his plate and is just trying to figure out if he can make things work with Ashlyn. Super enjoyed it. I cried, I laughed, my heart felt so full. I just loved this book so much, and it was amazing. The next book I read was My Fake Fiancé by Piper Rain, and I gave this book 4 stars. So this book follows our 2 characters, Mandy and Noah. As you can tell by the title, it is like a fake dating, fake engagement sort of book. So Mandy runs a like hotel or like an inn in this small town in Alaska where her family lives, and Noah is a traveling photographer who comes in and out of the inn. So as time goes on, like, they do get familiar with each other. There is like that instant attraction between them, and then one day Noah kind of finds himself in a situation where he asks Mandy for the favor to pretend that they are getting married. Like I said, I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed their connection. I always love seeing the big family, like the Green family. They're always fun. I do wish we got a little bit more from Noah, like the emotional side, because he did used to be a man who was like, yeah, no, I'll never get married. I'm fine traveling the world, doing what I want to do. And then Mandy was always like, yeah, I'm a small town girl. I'm going to get married, settle down, have a big family. So they're very much opposites. So I wish there was more like emotional conversations to see how we got from like point A to point B. But overall, I really loved their connection, and I loved the whole fake dating, fake fiance situation. And yeah, overall, it was a fun time. Next, I read Hating the Boss by Kristen Granada. I gave this book 4 stars. So this book follows our 2 main characters, Reagan and Jackson. And they meet at like a bar, a club or something, and they're supposed to have like a one-night stand situation. But then things happen. They don't quite go to plan. A few months later, or like a couple weeks later, Reagan returns to work and realizes that Jackson is actually her new boss. But since that night, Jackson thought that Reagan had taken something from his apartment. So he is not really the biggest fan of her. So it just follows Reagan and Jackson as they battle it out. But there's like this very big thing that they're just like not sure what actually happened. And we as readers don't know what happened either. So it was very fun to watch. Like I said, gave this book 4 stars. I loved the banter between Jackson and Reagan. It was very fun to see them like go at each other and just do all these pranks and all of that fun stuff. You could also see like the connection and the sexual tension between them. So I did really enjoy it. This was a super quick read, got through it pretty quick. it was just a fun time. The next book I read was The King by Nana Malone, and I gave this book 4 stars. So this book follows our main characters, Saffron and Lachlan. Saffron? I don't actually know how to say her name, but they call her Saf, so we'll just call her Saf, and the boy is Locke. So it follows them. There was this is book 2, so there was a short novella before this where Locke and Saffron had a one-night stand, and then it kind of just ends there. So this book picks up 3 months later after that one-night stand, where Saf is still kind of hung up on that. And she goes to work one day and realizes that Locke is there, and she doesn't know why he's there. But Locke, for some reason, does not remember who Saf is. He doesn't remember their night together. So this entire book, we're following Saf and Locke as they kind of re-explore their connection, because they clearly still have that connection, but Saf is like hesitant and Locke is just confused. So gave this book 4 stars, really enjoyed it. It is very action-packed because both Saf and Locke are like agents, so they go on like missions and they're detraining and all of this fun stuff. So I really enjoyed watching or like reading all of that, seeing all of that happen. I thought Saf and Locke were such fun characters. Like, they definitely had the banter, they definitely had the sexual connection, especially after reading the first book. So I love seeing their story continue. I do wish we got answers sooner, but like in the end it made sense on why things happened the way it happened. It is a very long book, so a lot of it, or some of it, I was kind of just like, yeah, okay, like I didn't care as much about like pages and pages of training. But in the end, I did really enjoy it, and it did end on a cliffhanger, so I am excited for the next book. But yeah, Saf and Locke, they were great. The side characters were also really fun. So yeah, enjoyed that. The next 2 books are also in a vlog, but I'll just talk about them together because these are the first 2 books in the Vicious Lost Boys series. The first one is The Never King. The second one is The Dark One, both by Nikki St. Crow. I gave The Never King 3.5 stars, and then I gave The Dark One 4 stars. So this is a dark romance retelling of Peter Pan, and it's like a reverse harem situation. So the premise of these books is that the Darling Girls, every day or every time one of them turns 18, Peter Pan comes to their world, takes them and brings them to Neverland. But the Darling Girls don't actually know why he's taking them or like what's actually happening. Peter wants something from them, and they're just like, I don't know what he wants. So we just explore all that fun stuff. Yeah, so I did enjoy these books. They're just fun little reverse harem books, obviously. And the spice was definitely there. I wish that the first book gave me a little bit more like world-wise, but also like the tagline was, I think it was something like Captain Hook wasn't always the bad guy or something like that, but we don't even see Captain Hook, so I was like, well, why is that the tagline? But I wish we got to see more of the world. As the book and the series went on, I did get more, and I was super engaged in all of it, and it was just a fun time in general. But yeah, so that was fun. I am looking forward to the 3rd book because the 2nd book ended up on a cliffhanger, but I believe that comes out the 1st week of September, so I think I will read that right away. And then the next book I read was The Scandal by Kristen Proby. Proby, not entirely sure how we say that. But I gave this book 5 stars. It was super, super fun. So we follow Stella and Grayson. So one night in Vegas, Stella accidentally gets married to her best friend. So she needs the marriage annulled because he's going to marry who he actually wants to marry. So in order for their marriage to get annulled, Stella goes to see a lawyer, Grayson, and from an instant there is the attraction there. So they kind of have like this whirlwind of a romance. Things happen really fast, they fall in love, it's great. So I gave this book 5 stars. I really loved Grayson and I loved Stella. They were both like strong characters. I loved how much like Stella stood her ground, and I loved how understanding Grayson was. They were just like great pair. There obviously were the troubles in the middle, like the breakup and stuff like that, but I felt like it went by super quick and it was handled in a good way. I could see where both characters were coming from, so I really enjoyed that. now we're here on the last book, which is Wild Type by H.K. Jacobs. I'm actually not quite done with it yet. It's about a doctor named Alexandra. One day she goes into a bar, she meets a guy named Owen who is like a playboy, but he's so this is like a billionaire romance. So it just starts there and then their romance continues, but final thoughts will be on Goodreads when I finish it, probably at some point within the next couple days. Like, I'll definitely finish it before August ends. But yeah, so that was a lot of books to talk about, but I really enjoyed most of them. I felt like I had a great reading month. If any of these are on your TBR, or if you have any thoughts of any of them, let me know. I'd love to chat, or you can let me know how your August went. But yeah, so that's all from me today. You can like, comment, and subscribe down below if you'd like. All of my socials to follow me anywhere else are in the description as always. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!